Stay with us, everyone. I was talking about what I call the tree of all evil, trying to get down to the root psychological condition that drives the human condition of slavery. We talked about willful ignorance stemming from the fear of owning one's personal responsibility to choose right action over wrong action, in turn stemming from issues of self-loathing, of not really deeply forming a good and positive relationship with oneself. You know, we haven't really developed as a species true self-respect. We still think that somewhere deep down inside, we think that we deserve what's happening. You know, we think that we're not really worthy. These feelings of unworthiness, okay, of not being good enough, of really, let's call it what it is, self-hatred. Only a self-hating people could possibly put up with slavery. Okay? It isn't because we cannot change this condition, that it somehow magically must be this way. We're doing this to ourselves at some level because we won't change our behavior. Order followers do this. Order followers. Without order followers, okay, slavery could not be maintained. I'm talking about even ball and chain slavery, physical ball and chain shackle slavery. You look at slavery during the Civil War period, physical slavery during the Civil War period of American history. That was maintained by what you called house slaves and other people who worked on plantations to actually keep that situation in place. They couldn't have done that on their own. Plantation owners couldn't have done that on their own. Well, today you have military and police who act as the house slaves of the modern era. You know, they're the enforcers. They're the people who are the order followers for the psychopathic ruling class, quote unquote, you know, those who see themselves as our rulers, as our masters. And they follow their bidding. They follow their orders. It's as simple as that. And anybody who doesn't understand that that's the case, you're asleep. You don't understand what's going on. Okay? Because without those people following those orders, they couldn't get a thing done. They're a bunch of old men who couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. Okay? So they need enforcers to do their dirty work for them because they're too cowardly and weak to actually physically get that done on their own. And if people knew that they were physically being held in hostage under duress, okay, they would rebel. They would physically rebel. But they've convinced people that there's somehow freedom in this world through, you know, the voting process and through the process called government, when it's just a state of violence. You know, it's just a system of violence, that it's enforced by violent order followers. That's all it is now. It's all it ever has been. That's all government ever will be. Whether you understand that or not doesn't make a difference. It's true. Doesn't make a difference what you happen to think now. That's the actual fact of the matter. So, without people being self-loathing, they would not do those behaviors. So what I'm saying here is, are all cops self-loathing people? Yes. Blanket statement. Every single one, bar none. 100% without one exception. Every cop is a self-loathing human being. Is every single soldier in the world who's following the bidding of these psychopathic ruling class so-called elitists a self-loathing individual? Yes. Every single last one, bar none. Bar none. Because to do those jobs deep in the subconscious mind, you must hate yourself. The end. That's the way that it is. Doesn't make a difference whether you disagree. Doesn't make a difference whether you don't understand. That's what's going on in the mind. That's what's going on in their mind, whether they understand it or not. It follows invariably, unwaveringly, logically. You cannot support a condition of slavery for yourself and your own species unless somewhere deep down inside yourself you hate yourself. And whoever wants to argue with it, argue till you're blue in the face. I'm not here to even have a debate about that. I'm telling you that's how it is. Not because I say so, because I have recognized it as such. Understanding enough about psychology, understanding enough about the subconscious mind, that is what's going on in them, whether they know it or not. And yes, blanket statement, all. See, the ego doesn't like that word. The ego doesn't like every, all, without exception. It hates that. It rebels against that. The ego can't stand a blanket statement. Well, guess what, folks? Some blanket statements are true. Many of them are not, but some are. There are certain things that are always true, that are always a certain way. And I'm telling you, this is one of them. People who support a system of slavery are self-loathing beings. That's it. You cannot love yourself. You cannot have deep, true self-respect if you are an order follower. It is not possible. They are contradictory in nature. Those two psychological states are contradictory in nature, in their very essence. And we need to understand this clear as day and state it that way unapologetically. Order followers are self-loathing. Order followers are self-loathing beings. Always have been. And when you become a person who's no longer in the state of self-loathing and has developed true self-respect, you won't do the job of following someone else's orders. That's the truth. As painful as that may be, that is eternal truth. So get over it if you don't agree. Or if you don't think that's how it really is. Because I'm not here trying to convince you. I'm telling you openly that's how it is. And this is the problem. This is the problem. If you want to be free, you have to develop your own self-respect and then help other people to develop self-respect for themselves. And that's the most difficult work there is to do in the world. Think about it. To help someone else, to influence another human being to start to love themselves. Who could think of something that's more difficult to do than that? Some people would say it can't be done. How could you do that? No, you can't make someone do it, but you can be an influence for them. You could be a role model for them. You could help them in that process. You can show them how they've been hating themselves and treating themselves horribly and supporting their own horrible treatment through their own wrong thinking, through their own misguided, mind-controlled forms of thought. And in doing so, you could help them to start reversing that self-loathing behavior and get on the path to true self-respect, which is the only thing that can ever cure self-loathing. Believe me, I know, folks, I was in this state. I was in it deep for at least 10 years of my life or more. So, it can be overcome. It is not a hopeless situation. But see, is self-loathing the bottom of the rabbit hole? Is that as deep as it really goes? Or is there something beyond that psychologically? Is there a deeper psychological condition or factor at work that creates self-loathing in a human being? And the answer is yes, there is. And while I would put self-loathing as the trunk of the tree of evil, that's the trunk, that's the part we can see that's holding up the rest of the evil structure. Okay? The structure of refusal to own personal responsibility and step into true adulthood. The refusal to look at that which is, to stay in willful ignorance, psychological denial, cognitive dissonance. This structure, these psychological structures are upheld by that self-loathing, which is the which is the trunk of the tree of evil. But what are the roots of that tree? What are the things from where the tree actually grows from? That is underneath the ground, that is even more difficult to see than even that somebody may not really have true self-respect. Many people can see that, but how many people can answer the question, why do people hate themselves so much? What are the roots of the tree of evil? I'll answer that question on the other side of this break. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on Republic Broadcasting. Stay with us.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide.